what I wanted to talk about here, again, there's a nice slide talking about a few of the things with SmartConnect that we're going to be looking at, but I just want to give you a brief little graphic to show you just kind of the different areas of it, and just breaking it down into 4 different areas. One, basically all integration is we're taking some kind of data source, whether it's a text file, a tab delimited, comma delimited, maybe it's an XML file. It could be coming from a SQL data source. It could be coming from a web service. It could be coming from a smart list inside GP. Again, info path, or it could be coming from Excel. Any kind of data source we can get our hands on, then we want to take that and move that into GP, or we can take that and move it into other destinations as well, right? So we obviously have GP, but maybe we need to put in some extender fields, or we need to push it into CRM or Salesforce, or we actually need to push stuff out into a web service that's out there, or again, maybe format some reports to send stuff out in text files like CSV or in Excel sheets and send those out. So just kind of showing you that, again, we can basically take any data source and move it to any destination and run it through this transformation, right? So we can do all kinds of things like, again, depending on what kind of data you're getting in, we can run calculated fields on that using .NET scripting, or we can get the next transaction numbers from inside of GP, or just various other validations and calculations we might want to do. And then one of the other big things where I think we're doing a lot of comparisons today of maybe where you've seen Integration Manager in the past, and now that SmartConnect is really becoming the de facto standard for a lot of customers in the GP space, that's what they're selling out of the box, is that a couple of the big things for people that came from the Integration Manager world is speed was a lot of times very much of a concern. If you're going through the old adapters, a lot of those were very, very, very slow because they were running macros essentially in the backside of GP. Other things that people had concerns with on the Integration Manager side of things, right, is that there's a bunch of integration points like analytical accounting isn't necessarily available everywhere inside of Integration Manager. And with SmartConnect, it is available in everywhere that analytical accounting can be available. That is available there as well. Things like field service or human resources are also other areas where people, again, those are new modules that Integration Manager may not have integration points, or not all of the integration points that are available with SmartConnect. Another area that, again, just talking about the breadth of that, is that with SmartConnect we can actually plug in third-party products. And so some of you may be familiar with Wensoft. Wensoft is actually, they've wholesale changed all of their integration to use SmartConnect, and they have all of their integration points have been done inside of SmartConnect. So that's one of the products that does it. Another one, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, is multi-facility from Binary Stream. They have a bunch of stuff where you can do multi-entity management on your GL or payables transactions and stuff. And so that is something that can fit right inside of SmartConnect, and you can integrate to those kinds of things as well. Another area, again, just comparing to Integration Manager, is people, you've had to have a GP user being used, and you've had to be logged in. So that's been one of the concerns for people, is the additional cost of having the integration user. And then also when you look ahead to scheduling, which is kind of one of the next things I have here, is with scheduling, that was something that was fairly complex. You could do it inside of Integration Manager, but again, it had to have a GP client open and got fairly complex, and was a little problematic. Well, inside of SmartConnect we have scheduling built in, and you don't have to be logged in with a GP user, and so there's some really nice things that we can look at in that area. I'm just going to skip right ahead into that. So I'll go on to my demo image now, and we're going to jump right inside of I guess just digging right into the product. And so what I'm going to start by showing you a few things entirely outside of SmartConnect. So I'm going to start by showing you some very simple things just to get you thinking today. And all right, just a second. Just to get you thinking today. And so we're actually going to start by using one of our Excel templates. Now we have a bunch of these templates around journal entries and sales orders and payables and inventory transactions. There's a ton of those kinds of things, and they're free with SmartConnect, so there's no additional charge. And for some people, they're a great interface to bring stuff inside a GP without requiring another user. So I'll just show you a quick example, and then through that we can dig into really what is behind the scenes with SmartConnect. So we'll start by creating a journal entry. We'll just put PEA for the batch ID, and I'll just put, I'm in a sample company here, so I'll just, okay, so again, what I have here, now that you can see it, is this is a journal entry template, again, that's available at no charge. We're just going to create a quick journal entry, and then we'll show you how that maps through SmartConnect. So again, just putting a batch ID, pick the date. Again, I can do standard or reversing types in here. I can pick my source documents, right, if I wanted GJ, which is a standard one, or the other types, again, the different currencies. I can also switch companies. And what this does, actually, if I were to switch companies here, all of the accounts and all of those currencies and all those things get refreshed from inside of GP. So that is actually, in this case, these templates are pulling dynamically from whichever company you want to use, and we'll pull all the accounts from there. So it's kind of a cool thing. All right, we'll just put a quick little reference here. And again, there's a couple ways in here. I could type this in. We also have lookups, right, if we wanted to pick one of the account numbers. Also, again, if you don't know the account number, but you know the account name, then we can look it up that way as well. We have a couple things built in here, right? So I'll just put in a debit, and then if I put in a credit, and if I accidentally make a mistake, if I accidentally type in an extra zero, now I have an unbalanced transaction, right? And SmartConnect would find that. It wouldn't bring it in. It would bring an error back. But what we've added to these templates is we've added some additional logic to basically tell you that there's something wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the submit button, and you'll see that it gives us a message saying that they don't match. And so I could go back and look and go, oh, oops, that was wrong. I put too many zeros, and now I can go ahead and submit this. Now when I hit that submit button, what that is doing is that is pushing this transaction that we just created through SmartConnect and into GP. So what we'll do is I should be coming up pretty quick here. Okay, there we go. Always the first time it's a little bit slow when I run it through. But if we go inside of GP now, and I'll just pull up the last one that's here. And there you go. We see we have a batch of PA. PA demo is our reference. And here's the accounts that we brought in for $100. So you can see that was something that, again, entirely, we weren't inside of GP, we were in Excel, and instead of maybe what you traditionally think of as integration where you're pulling in bulk data, we were able to push that data in when we wanted to. So this, for a lot of people, this might be a preferred way of doing things. Just to kind of show you another way of that before I go into the mapping on this is I have another, this is an Excel report built with Excel Report Builder. I don't know if any of you guys are using that, part of the Smart List Builder product, but those Excel reports that pull refreshable data from inside of GP are gaining a lot of popularity with people because one of the first things people always do anyway is they export their smart lists that people love to configure, and they export them out to Excel. And so why not do it one time, format it something pretty, and use that and just refresh the data? Well, we have done that, but then this is where I want to get you thinking about integration. Is what I've done here is this is a report basically saying that I have some shortages on some of these items, and maybe my warehouse manager or something like that needs to order and look at what we want to order. So I'm just going to pick on, this is my favorite one to pick on, is Signature Systems. Looks like they have 4 products in here that it's recommending that we order. And here's the recommended order values that were coming from inside of GP. Actually, those are, I think, ones that I typed in before, so I could hit refresh and pull the current ones. Here, why don't I do that? So again, here we go. Here's the recommended quantities coming from inside of GP. But I can change that and say, all right, we want 20 of those, 20 of these, 100 of these, and 200 of these. Now, again, I think what a lot of people have done in the past, they would say, okay, great, this is a nice report. Now I'm going to go email this to somebody else and have them enter in purchase orders so that we can get more of those quantities. And this is where I'm challenging you, is to say, hey, we can take any data, and with this Excel add-in that we have, I can choose to run this map, and this is going to take this Excel data and is going to bring in these quantity shortages report. It's going to bring it in as purchase orders. So this is going to create one purchase order for each vendor. And I'll just give, again, the first time takes just a little bit longer. So just to give you an idea, right, I'll run it one more time. So you saw the first time took a couple seconds. This one took 3 seconds to bring in 13 purchase orders. So now if we go ahead and I go into purchasing, and I'm a little old school how I navigate that, my apologies. Been around for a while, I got to get used to some of the new ways of getting there that are a little easier. All right, here's the last PO for Signature Systems. And there you'll see the quantities I put in, right? 20 of that item, 20, 100, and 200. I was able to bring that purchase order, and again, a purchase order for each vendor that had those recommendations. So again, kind of having you think just a little bit outside the box, maybe what you've done traditionally, where you've just pulled in bulk imports, and now get you thinking about how you can push data into GP and change the paradigm around to be a little more real-time in nature. We're going to pull up a couple of those maps. So here's a list. I have some different groups set up for my mappings, and in this group, you can see I have some things around my Excel templates. So here, like I mentioned, there's bunches of them around GL and accounts payable and sales orders and inventory adjustments and payroll and all that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and pull up that journal entry that I brought in right away, and we'll just kind of walk through a couple of the things as we dig right into this. You'll see right here the data source. We have an Excel data source, and in this case, this is a bulk data load. I'm just going to briefly mention this, and I can come back in a little more detail, but we have the ability to when we set up maps to use bulk data sources, we can use real-time events. Now, real-time might mean from CRM, right? When maybe I save an account inside of CRM, and I want that to create a customer inside of GP, I can take that data as soon as I save it. Or on the GP side of things, right? Maybe I want to take that GP customer and I want to move it to Salesforce. And so whenever I save that customer inside of GP, that automatically runs a map to push it out to Salesforce. Or even just taking it a bit further, this is one of the common ones we do, that maybe every time you create an employee, that maybe they have travel expenses that need to be reimbursed. You might have to create them as a vendor or a creditor inside of the accounting system. So you can take other GP data and turn it into additional GP transactions. All right, sorry, we were just getting into the map. I'm just talking about the different types of data sources, and I guess I was on real time. And just to finish my thoughts on the real time, is, again, we can take any kind of GP data. It could be accounts. For example, if you had one master company and you had other GP companies that needed to get those same accounts, you could certainly do that. Or if you created a new division, you could have like just a map that ran, and you just put maybe that one segment that changed in the account, and you could have it create those in one or more companies. So there's just lots of things that you can do with those types of data sources. Changes is kind of like that, but it only keeps track of the changes, and then oftentimes it gets used with our scheduler so that you can just schedule those maps to run maybe once a day or once an hour or something like that, and then you're just sending through the changes as opposed to something immediately happening. So you have a lot of options here. But again, I think for traditional integration, this is probably where most of us have lived. And again, it could be Excel files, it could be CSV text files, any kind of ODBC connection we can connect to. Again, Salesforce, SmartList, any web service you have out there, that's becoming more and more popular, XML files, those kinds of things. One of my favorites here, kind of skip over it a lot, but is we have a folder data source that you can put files in a folder, and then if they all match a template that you define, it will use those files. So it doesn't matter what they're called even, as long as they have the same structure. So again, if we talk about like the journal entry Excel sheets that I put out there, you could have one for Susie and one for Joe and one for all the people, and they could have their name on it, and they could basically put it in a directory, and once it was in the directory, we could have it run on a scheduled basis, or there's a real-time option even for folders that as soon as something pops in there, it can run that integration and bring it in. So just to let you know, basically any kind of data source you can get at, you'll be able to use. In this case, we just browsed out to our file that we've been using, and if I hit preview on this, it looks like I have this pointing to a different file, but you'll see there's two different lines in that journal entry. So that's my data source. Now, once you have a data source, you have to pick a destination. And this is where, again, I think our primary focus today is GP, but the integration world really is changing. And it's not just GP integration anymore. It is from GP to other systems or other systems into GP. And so that's why we've given you a wide variety of things that you can do. Again, obviously, our office, we have over 100 years of GP experience, so we're quite passionate about it. But we do realize that there's a lot of other things that you might want to do, from stored procedures to CRM, Salesforce, and other web services. But again, the GP one, once we pick that, you can pick very easy. We have I like to think of it as modules. You pick your group, then you pick that under General Ledger. Maybe I want to bring in accounts or checkbooks, but in this case we're bringing in transactions. But they're all grouped together, and so then now I'm in my mapping screen. One other thing just to point out here, I maybe won't go into it unless somebody wants to see it later on, but we can add any extender window or extender object to any of these maps very, very easily. It just pulls it in, and you can map those custom fields. Why I'm here, before we get into the mapping, you can run this into multiple companies at one time if you wanted. I could choose to run it into both my Fabricam company and my test company. Now, interesting thing here is you'll see that I don't have any selected. But if I click on this Define button, what I am actually able to do is, if I have a field in my database, or in my data source, I should say, that has that indicates what my company is, I can pass that in, and then I can send in from one Excel file, for example, I can send that into multiple GP companies, and maybe I had like an Excel file that had 10 different journal entries in, and the first 2 go to company A and the next 3 go to company B. You can do that simply by taking that field that was defined in there. So that's what we're actually doing in our template, is we're passing in the company it needs to go into when you choose it and push it in. Now we get into the mapping. So this is something that has some similarities to Integration Manager, right? If I just pull this up, everything on the left-hand side, right, is coming from my source file. So it doesn't matter if that source file was a text, a tab or comma delimited, or if it was a SQL table or XML or a web service or CRM. It doesn't much matter. That's going to show up over here. And then you'll see, with a couple exceptions, any columns that we add, this, for example, is going to grab the next journal entry from GP. Any column like that we add, or maybe calculated fields where we're manipulating maybe we need to add some values together, or maybe add like a first name, last name to get a full name kind of thing for some employees or vendors or something like that. You can do those kinds of things. And then in this case, this is our header portion, right? We only want to create one piece for the headers, so we're rolling everything up and grouping it on the key field. And then literally the mapping is drag and drop, right? All I need to do is do this, or I can also I can choose from a drop-down list over here as well as another way of doing it. So I don't want that mapped here, so I'll just delete that. But you can see, very, very easy. Now some other things too, right? You have the ability to update a lot of the records, not every one of them, because we are utilizing eConnect behind the scenes. That's what gives it a ton of speed. But it is one of the areas. And again, there's some abilities. Maybe I won't get into that, but you have the ability to update blank data if you want as well. If I go ahead and look into the line items now, same kind of thing, but now you'll notice that this is not grouped because we want every one of those line items. And in this case, it's distributions on a journal entry, but it could be on a sales order, for example, or purchase order that we might have multiple line items that would be, we want each one of those as well. So another indicator is that we can show just the required fields that eConnect is telling us are required. And so we can turn that off and on and kind of get an indicator of where that's coming from. Okay, a couple other things. There's a lot more things up here at the top, right? I can preview my data, which is really nice to have when you're doing mapping, is just being able to see what you have in different columns. You can put in further restrictions in here if you want. And again, this will allow you to do .NET scripting, either C# or VB.NET if you want. And there's a bunch of built-in functions that you can use. You don't have to be a developer, but if you are, there's a lot of stuff in there for you. Again, additional columns. I mentioned, here's that rolling column. This is going to get me the next available journal entry in this case. Now you see that there's also stuff for inventory and payables and sales order and all those other modules. And there's also custom rolling columns too. So if you want to get your next documents that way, it works great as well. Additionally, I mentioned you can add global constants. We can do translation tables, right? So you can set that up one time. There's something like that in Integration Manager. But this is a great way of doing that, and it's very, very quick as well. And then again, obviously, besides some of the other ones, you can format different dates. If you're maybe getting a date format that you're not expecting, again, maybe you're getting a U.S. format over there, and you need to format it to the international standard. You can use that to do that. But again, probably one of the most popular ones is calculated field, is that we can return any kind of value. You can put any kind of logic you want inside of here, and it works great, and that becomes available for you to map. Okay, so that essentially is very quickly how you can set up a map. Now, some of the options I mentioned, right, is that here's the script language, right, for the calculated fields. And so you can choose which one you want to do. If you're more familiar with C# instead of VB.NET, you can do that. There's also a lot of options for how you want to log errors and even for debugging and stuff like that. It's very, very robust on when you're trying to troubleshoot. Maybe again, you're expecting certain values from your integration, and you're maybe getting something very, very different from maybe from a downloaded file you got. There's some some data that's not matching what you thought. This is a great way of finding out by looking at that. Tasks is one of the big ones too, because what's great about this is you have a lot of flexibility. And again, if you're familiar with Integration Manager does have some similarities in this area, but it is using really, a 20-year-old VB script language instead of what everything has been on for the last 10 years with .NET. And so again, the flexibility you have the ability to do stuff before a map. So what does that mean? Well, we have some people that are going out and getting the data before the map runs. So maybe that's running a stored procedure in SQL to say, okay, run the stored procedure to create data. Or we've had somebody that was actually using an FTP command to download some price lists from a vendor. So they were able to bring down those price lists and then use those text files they had just received as their data source. So there's a lot of things you can do there. You can do some validations before you bring in an integration. We have a lot of people that maybe journal entries is a great example. Is you might have an account that doesn't exist, or maybe isn't active, or I don't know, like maybe the wrong type or something like that. And so oftentimes we just run a quick check on those 3 areas to ensure that the data we're bringing in, instead of trying to bring in a journal entry with 1,000 lines and finding out that 2 of the accounts don't exist, now before we even run that, we can say, oh, let's go fix those 2 accounts, and now let's submit it. So there's some things like that. And then again, you can also do it on each document, right? So if I had, for example, like the purchase order I created from that Excel sheet, every time that a purchase order goes in successfully, right? I created 13 of them from that document. Each successful one would go down this path, right? Saying that each document succeeded. Now, each one that failed would go into this path, and then again you have the ability to run something before each document. Well, if any of them failed, then in the map post task, it's going to go into this route, and again, if every one of them succeeds, it'll go here. So one of the most common ones we have, I'll just add a new task now since I've been talking a bunch, but these are available everywhere. We have a bunch of file functions where you can move, copy, delete files. Probably one of the most popular ones is the send email. Is right from inside of here, we can send an email through SMTP, and that we can say who it's coming from, who it's going to, who it's from, what the subject, what the message is. But I'm going to show you something real quick. We have a template for emailing errors, and I'm not going to put in any of the values, so it's just going to create it here. But if we had put in values for this, I could put, say this comes from support at my organization and it's being sent to maybe an admin, saying that something failed on this map and we need to go fix it. Okay. Additionally, it'll tell you which map, right? We have some global variables, and then we can tell you when it started, the date, and then this is probably the most important part. This gives you all of the errors that came from that map. So this is a great little thing that this will fire off an email when it fails, and you're good to you're good to go. You now have some information to go fix that at a later time. Additionally, some of the other scripts or tasks you can run files. You can again do some additional .NET scripting if you want to. It gives you a lot of flexibility. Another really good one is being able to run another map. So you can chain maps together. And again, if you're familiar on the Integration Manager side, they had a somewhat similar where you could do integration groups, and this will allow you to basically say, hey, I want to run this map and then this map and then this map. Now, one really cool thing you can do is you can actually use the data from the parent map and basically pass it in. And so let's say, for example, you had let's just take the purchase orders that we had created. Maybe before I create the purchase orders, I want to make sure that the vendor exists or the items exist and stuff like that. So I could run those 2 maps before the purchase order one, and I could pass in that data to create the items or the vendors beforehand. So those are just some really cool things that you can add in there. And again, you can change the sequence of the order you want. Okay. You can also, again, this gets more into the scripting part, but you can set different global variables. So if you can override them, and you can override them in script as well, but just a starting place. All right, so let's talk about probably something that you guys are a little more excited about, and that is the scheduling, because this is really a big area for a lot of people. And on the scheduling side of things, again, you're not required to be inside of GP at all. You don't have to have a client open. And that gives you an extra user that you don't have to pay for. And again, I think a lot of times that stopped a lot of integrations running overnight that may have been scheduled. You have flexibility. You could run it as often as every minute if you wanted, right? I could just hit this repeat button and say run every minute. I don't normally recommend that, but that is something that you can do if it's your requirements. So a lot of people, might do it every hour, or we even have maps. Again, just how do we use it at E1 if we have a project that we're working on, some support or something like that with you, and that comes in through the website, it will actually take that order that came in through our website. We're using SmartConnect to push it in, but then I actually have a scheduled map that runs after, if it's a specific thing that has some services attached to it, then we run that to create a project and then let our support people, consultants know that they need to follow up with that person that just purchased that time. So we have that running, I think, every 5 minutes on our site. Okay, so that's just one map I showed you. I guess what I was I don't know how much time. Can you guys tell me how much time we have left today?
We've got about 15 minutes, Chris.
You still do? Okay, great.
Yeah, about 5 minutes to questions.
Okay. Well, let me just show you one quick little thing then. We have the ability, everything I've been showing you so far is CRM, but I can also, in this case, I can send stuff and interact with CRM as well. And here I just have an Excel sheet where I have some of my opportunities from CRM. So let's just go ahead. We'll pick our buddy Aaron Fitz here, and we'll say he's going to sell some SmartConnects after today's demo. And we'll say there's a 75% chance that we're bringing that in. And I'll just go. Okay, so I've just added a new opportunity. I'm also going to update this one that was 80%. I'm just going to make that 100% for saying that one's coming in good, and we'll call it hot. Okay, much like I showed you before, where we're sending stuff through SmartConnect. This is going to do it, but it's not going to GP this time for the destination. It is going to CRM. So I'll get ready to open up my CRM here. Okay. And so now if I go ahead and refresh my CRM, you'll see that, what did I call that? SmartConnects. All right, here we go. Here's our opportunity, right, that we just created, the SmartConnects one. And there you can see the information. Now there was also, I updated the probability, right? There was one for Alton Manufacturing. I didn't mean to do that. Open manufacturing, we had 80%, and it was warm. I changed it to 100% and hot. So you can see that we can do stuff like that. Now again, we have a full set of templates that not Excel-based one, just like I showed you, but we have real-time integration that I can, when I create an account inside of CRM, I push it to GP, or again, real-time from GP, that customer, or debtor, sorry. Again, I'm American, so I forget, guys. But pushing that debtor into back into CRM. We also have a bunch of stuff around all the inventory items and pricing, and again, being able to move orders and invoices and quotes into GP from CRM. So we have templates for that. We have all kinds of templates that are like Excel sheets or CSV files for GP integration. So everything from bank rec transactions to we have some around field service to intercompany analytical accounting, all those kinds of things. You have the ability to do that. All right, I've done a lot of talking. Again, I could probably talk forever on a bunch of this stuff. Maybe one thing I will show you before we jump right into questions, since I got like 1 minute, is security can be a very big thing, and especially when you talk about sending stuff outside of GP. Excuse me. When you have stuff outside of GP, when we're using those Active Directory users, we can choose which user has rights. And so you can see I have 3 of my users are admin users, but then this user is not an admin, and now we can give them specific rights. So I can choose which things they can integrate with using GP or CRM or Salesforce. I can also go down to the map, right? If I only want this person to have access to that journal entry map, I can set it up that way. And so that's a great way of doing things. Again, that kind of goes in concert with what we have down below, where everything I was showing you inside of there, right, I was creating or changing the mappings, but maybe I only wanted a couple people at my company to do that. And so I can choose to only allow people to run maps in this case. So this person, right, that I'm looking at, this person only has the ability to run maps, and they can only see that one map in their list of things to run. So that's just one thing. I just want to make sure you guys understand that we have a lot of built-in security here, and get a lot of flexibility for you how you want to set it up. All right. So let's open it up to questions.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so the first question here from an attendee is, I have a requirement to have entities into GP via a custom-built system. We use MSMQ and web services. Can the app publish web services or consume queues?
Okay, as far as web services, what we have the ability to, we can read from web services as a data source. So if you have some kind of web service that's going to return, an XML stream or something like that, we can read that and use that as a data source. We can also publish to any web service out there. So it could be a custom one that you've built, or one that's standard available out there on the internet. So we do have the ability to add that to the map. Again, the mapping screens that I showed you, I don't know if I have any. Let me just, oh, okay, I'm not sharing anymore. Basically, again, just the destination side and the data source side, just depending on where it is. But you could take from a web service data source, and you could push it to a web service as a connection. Now, to specifically address MSMQ, we don't have anything specific for reading off of that as a data source. We do have one thing on the GP side of things. We can write to Microsoft Message Queue. That's built in, but yeah, just out of the box, it is not set up to read from an MSMQ.
All right, thank you. We've got a couple more questions there, Chris. Another question there from an attendee. We run GP through Citrix, so the local users using Excel on local machines, or are using on local machines, can they submit through to GP in real time with the SmartConnect XL add-in? And if so, what would be deployed on the local machines?
Okay. Yep. Absolutely. What that Excel add-in behind the scenes uses, we have our own internal web service. So we have one web service, which is really, really nice. And that one web service allows you to choose which map you're running and pass in the data. And so it runs through that interface. And so basically, the two things you need is you have that web service running somewhere on a web server. And then on each client, you would need to have that Excel add-in loaded. And because that Excel add-in communicates with the web service, it just pushes that data. So that's really all you would need on each of those clients.
Great. There's another question there, Chris. Have templates been developed for pushing templates into TimeTrack? Sorry, have templates been developed for pushing timesheets into TimeTrack?
Are they talking about like project accounting there?
Yeah, I think timesheeting there in relation to project costs.
Okay. If it is the GP project accounting and those timesheets there, then yes, there is a node available to push that in right out of the box from eConnect. If you're talking about something other than that, then there may not be.
Oh, actually, sorry, Chris. No, the attendees said that it's not. It ends up putting times into Wensoft jobs.
Oh, Wensoft jobs. Okay. I'm not familiar with that, with what they have available. That might be something we might need to follow up with Wensoft on to see if that's available in what they provided.
Yeah, sure, not a problem. I'll touch base with the attendee on that one after the session, and we can look into that a little bit further.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so that's all the questions that we have today. So let me tell you a little bit about the special offer. Okay, so today's special offer is a $500 discount on the SmartConnect software. The total value of $4,500, bringing that down to $4,000. The offer is available until the end of March, being the 31st. If you are interested in taking us up on that offer, you can contact your account manager or alternatively Fraser Moore. Now his details are below if you do contact Fraser. His email address is fraser.moore@pa.com.au and his contact number is 0294668651. Now, when you log out of the session, you will be prompted to complete the survey form, and we'd appreciate it if you could, because your feedback's important to us. And we've just got 3 areas there. So the first one, would you like to be contacted by Professional Advantage about receiving the $500 discount on the SmartConnect software? The second, when would you like to implement SmartConnect for Dynamics GP? And the last, what other webinar topics would you be interested in seeing in the future? Now, just to spark a few ideas here, Professional Advantage have a focus on these areas: BI and performance management, financials and ERP, business process management and workflows, intranets, portals and collaboration, CRM and marketing automation, IT infrastructure, hosting and managed services. So if you can think of a webinar that you might want to see in future that may relate to any of those areas that the business focuses on, that would be, we'd really appreciate that feedback. I'd just like to say thank you to Chris for presenting today and everyone for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. And as I mentioned earlier on, the recorded session will be sent over to all the attendees. And if you've got any questions, feel free to contact your account manager or alternatively Fraser Moore. Thank you.
For your